everyone. This is Madeline from editing. This podcast episode has a lot of background noise that you can randomly hear because we filmed in our storage slash office and the iLab was iLabbing, so there's a lot of loud voices screaming in the esports arena, which is okay, but just keep that in mind. I also wanted to come in here and give another just reminder that this month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's also Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and quite a few others. October is really the month, and so I'll still be linking things in the description, and make sure to check out if you need any advice or help or support. We're here for you. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you in 2 seconds. Welcome back to the Women of UHE podcast. Today I'm with our Director of UHEsports and our Assistant Director of UHEsports. If you guys want to introduce yourself more.
Yeah, I'm Sky Kauweloa, as Madeline said, Director of UHEsports. And my other hat is I do research here at the University of Hawaii around the topic of esports, and I also teach a course as well.
Do you count as like freshly graduated still?
I mean, like, technically, I thought I started last year, but technically I start this year.
Oh.
My tenure clock starts this year. Mm-hmm. So it's good and bad because it allows me to like accumulate more things that I've done, because I have 5 years on the clock. And so I have like this extra year that I can accumulate. But at the same time, I'm like, oh gosh, why didn't you tell me?
And then my name is Kevin. I work with Sky to provide the best experience to students that join the UHE program. And my main goal is to get students into the industry, get them sporadically spread across the United States. And by doing so, I hope we can spread seedlings so that they can come back and invoke more hope and inspiration to students so that they can go and find careers in the esports and gaming industry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I said this, but my name's Madeline. And I'm the Women of UHE coordinator, as well as the player support coordinator of our esports program. And this is kind of a different environment than our other podcasts, because usually we have marginalized genders on our podcast. Today we have 2 cis males, which is not bad.
Apologize right
now. No, it's not bad. I think, I don't know. I wanted you guys on because I think you've supported my growth in this program and also the support of the Women of UHE program in general. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to have other perspectives, even if you don't fall under the marginalized gender like umbrella. It's nice to have other voices that contribute and are like allies. So
I mean, I want to touch on this really quick, as you mentioned that. And I wanted to share this with you, Sky. So the other day I got to talk to Small F Christian. And I think I shared a very similar experience with him, and wanting to go to mainland to school, like do something else. But I think by talking to him, I think he got inspired, and now he doesn't feel as bad to go to UH. I know it sounds weird. No, but I think it helped to showcase like, hey, look, you can create your own path just because you didn't get to go to your dream school.
Yeah.
And like, I know you want me to speak in your class too, to, help show that inspiration that, hey, you can make it. And so I'm glad I was able to do that with you. But again, it's to help that marginalized community, right? Not everyone gets the same opportunities. Sky and I, working alongside Madeline, hopefully we can break those barriers.
Yeah.
Honestly, they're lame and you shouldn't have to go through it.
No, exactly. And even like something that I've kind of come across already is that although I am a marginalized gender, being a woman, I'm not like, I do not have it that bad, to be honest, because I'm white and I grew up in a pretty privileged family and I just have all of these other things that have benefited me and that I have a privilege from. So it's taking the time to like learn more about. I just got so distracted. Why do you have a...
Sorry. I don't know. I just have to
No. I put them in... Sorry. Anyway.
Yeah.
But
to help the group. So like help people who are struggling, right? Because
like, especially talking to like Native Hawaiians, because we're like a university at Hawaii, and I'm not from Hawaii. I'm from the UK, and I have no real understanding of what it was like to grow up here or to kind of just like be in this environment, to have the historical context of this place. And so being able to learn more about that and try supporting more Native people here and just kind of everyone else that I don't really I'm not a part of them, but I want to do my best to support them. And so I kind of relate to you guys because it's like, yeah, you're not in this group, but being an ally is so important and supporting other people is so important. You made it so deep immediately.
No, well,
I didn't mean to do that.
No, it was more so like
I was like, oh, we'll talk about like gaming.
No, but I didn't realize that, like, because I just work with students every day, and I just didn't think it's like when you go through it, you kind of get a little jaded, and it's like, okay, like I'm sharing the same story again. But yeah, after speaking with Christian, I didn't realize he was like, oh yeah, like, and you know, again, he had aspirations to go to mainland school, and like when you don't get it, or when you just can't go, it hits you. And I went through that, and I didn't think that like by empathizing with him and like telling him what I went through, he was just like, wow, that's cool, that's dope. Like I didn't realize I can do this. Like and giving him options, I was like, oh wow, like who knew that like my story could make that much of an impact? Because most of the time, you know, they nod their head and they get it, but this one it was like, oh, like he had that smile where it's like, oh wow, like this did make an impact, and he like left the room feeling like a little different, if that makes sense. I was like, wow, that's kind of cool.
Suddenly you're like, oh, I can do something.
Yeah.
I'm not like, just because this thing didn't work out doesn't mean I'm screwed for life or something like that.
So that was like, I don't know, that really brought back like that joy I had with working with students again.
Aww.
It was super weird. Like,
That's so cool,
I was just like, oh wow, like, because we were talking about the Seattle LAN.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna bring our Smash team to Seattle to participate in their first LAN, and yeah, afterwards, like I had to talk to him, and yeah, we just talked for like an extra 30 minutes, and it was really cool to like give people that hope, and that's what you're doing with WouHE, and we're just here to support.
I mean, kind of same thing, like the fact that we're even bringing a team to LAN and why I kind of pushed it, and even though you took on like most of the heavy lifting for it, why I wanted it to happen was just so they can like go somewhere. Go somewhere, meet other people, and be in a bigger environment. And especially when we're on a smaller island and we're pretty far from the mainland, to be honest, like at least a 5-hour flight. That them being able to get out there, because most students don't leave this island if they grow up here, or they have very little experience.
No, it's really
going
cute
out of
because
state.
like I talked to the students and I was like, "Is this your first trip?" They're like, "No, but this is my first time flying alone." I'm like, "Okay," and he's like, "Where do I go?" I'm like, "Okay, just go here. You'll have my contact." And just try to talk to them. Also, these students are really committed. I didn't realize this. Like one of the like Smash players, they live in Waianae, which is like 2 hours away, and they bus every time they come here. I'm like, that's respect, and like you know they come here and they take that time. And then I was like, yo, like how do you do it? And he's just like, I just want to be here, I love it. And I'm like, that's awesome to hear that we give people that platform, that home. But again, like I always want to cycle back to WouHE. Like it's super important. When I went to the Kentucky conference with Gen G, and there was a panel that talked about DNI, and it was just that made me realize like, hey, I need to check up more, but I shouldn't helicopter. I should let you do, you know, have your vibes, but it's like just check up, see what you need to do, see how I can help. Same with Sky, and like just be a support system and a pillar rather than like, hey, like you should do this or we should do that, because me and you won't know. They know what they need best, and so
no, that's something interesting that's come up. Like as I've talked to other marginalized gender programs, and we've kind of talked about similar issues or stuff like that. One of the main things is just constantly being talked over or interrupted, or just kind of like someone else just takes over the conversation and doesn't allow someone else a chance to talk or a chance to fill the silence or just bring in their own opinion. And reminding those that are like more privileged or aren't as marginalized that isn't a benefit we always get to have, and we don't always feel comfortable talking, and sometimes listening is like the most helpful thing. But
I think a big thing, sorry, it was like one other thing too, like during that panel, it was like speaking up and like putting it out there, like, hey, like stuff's not okay. Like you said, people are speaking over you. Like it's like, yo, just let them finish, or like, you know, speaking up. And like, I know at first I was like, oh, I thought you want to handle things privately, but it's like, no, we want to show to the community that like, hey, there's certain things like, it's like you shouldn't be doing this. Don't make those types of jokes. I was like, oh yeah, that does make sense, because then it shows that, hey, like, we can't be screwing around, messing around like this.
No,
And I was like, okay, like that really does make a difference. It really helped me understand, and I know I'm just shouting out like all these cool things, but I don't know. It's just I'm just sharing my learning experiences, right? Because like I didn't know until like you get exposed and you learn from people who go through the hardships, right? And so that's what really helped me, honestly.
You know, when I was brainstorming questions, I really wanted to ask you, because you did this whole PhD research, you already finished everything.
Yeah.
But what was your experience in, like, were you able to notice the difference between, like, oh, there's only male players I'm interviewing, or what the kind of like space looked like at UCI or at any of the other places, especially with leaders as well? Did you notice kind of what that looked like?
I mean, yeah, obviously. I mean, this research goes back to 2015 when I first did my first publishable paper under my PhD program. I went to a school called Robert Morris University, which actually is the first school to have really started collegiate esports in its modern incarnation as a scholarship experience.
Oh, right.
So I actually went there to do research back in 2015, and I actually talked to the first girl who was ever part of a scholarship team ever in the U.S.
Wow.
And so, yeah, like I said, you know, throughout my research, I had 11 male participants and 1 female. And it was the case always, no matter where I went. It was always vast majority of men versus a small collection of women. Now, that's not to say that like women were absent. So that's not true. In collegiate esports, from its very sort of like origins, going back to CSL, going back to the first sort of games between MIT and Princeton, it was actually women who were part of the founding members of clubs. Of gaming clubs, those being Smash and League. It was women who were organizing the events. It was women who were getting players together. So yeah, there's a very weird dichotomy that exists within the collegiate space in which there is discussion of why women are absent, but that absence is only within certain contexts, and that is usually around why are they not playing?
Yeah.
Right. When in reality, women have always been there, but they've been kind of in the background.
Yep.
Right. They've taken on sort of that support role. Like again, like we see here even at UHE, where we have both you and Ali in these very important supportive roles.
But I'm not on our varsity ballet team.
Right. But the question, I think, for a lot of folks that look at collegiate esports, when they say, where are the women? They're asking, I think what they're missing is that the women are there, but they're not there in where the traditional boys spaces are.
Yeah.
Right. And so I saw that from the very beginning. And so a lot of the questions like we're tackling now with the idea of creating women by women spaces for women, it has a long history, right? One of my own colleagues and friends, she led Smash Sisters out of New York, Lily Chen, and I really admired what she did back in 2014 and 15, in which she created the Smash Sisters, which was basically a group of young women creating Smash events, again, by women for women. And it was this idea that in order for them to really understand the space, they need to take complete ownership over it. And there's a lot of attempts by professional organizations that we know in which they create like a women's team or women's league. And there's something funky about it, right? Because it's not that there's nothing wrong with creating women's team or women's league. But what has to happen is you have to understand who is leading that conversation. Often it's a very bizarre PR stunt. I think we saw that, with a couple of teams in which I think it was out of Russia. They created a couple of women's team that completely got demolished. So they put out a women's team. What happened is that they put them out as a token, right, of expression without building infrastructure to support them. Right. And so I think for us at UH, when I was able to bring on Ali and Madeline really into this space, is that I knew this couldn't be just tokenism.
Yeah. Like we actually had something to contribute also. I think there's a tendency to bring in people just because they're like bring some diversity to things. And you're like, but if they're not good at their job, then like what's the point?
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
I'd say like both Ali and I are like decent at our jobs.
Yeah.
Plus we get to kind of fill that void.
Yeah.
So it's nice that I don't know. You took the chance on us, but
it took a chance, but I also felt very confident just watching what you guys did, really over a short period of time, in which I could sense you guys had a drive, right, that I didn't see in other folks. And not to say that was any better than anybody else, but to be in this space, you have to also have a drive, right? And I saw that with both of you. I think it's like that,
because at the end of the day, you guys have the skill set and that tick where it's like, I'm gonna make it happen.
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, it's like, I'm gonna make it happen.
Right.
And so it's like, you're right. It does fill that void, but you already had the skill set, so it was like a non-factor. Like, we're just gonna pick you for how good you guys are at doing, especially for you before. If you remember, I mean, obviously you do. You worked on the Valorant like content stuff, remember? Mm-hmm. And like, I remember all the like hand holding you had to do with all these like our students, right? Of like, hey, we need to get this done. And
hey, I still have the most watched video on YouTube that I didn't edit, but I planned and organized.
Yeah, and like going through that, right? And same with Ali and helping to manage the iLab. Without all of this, the esports space at UH would be a lot different, right? And so we just needed you guys. And so at the end of the day, I mean, it's true. Like at the end of the day, like it's like Sky mentioned, a lot of it is tokenism, and people are just using it for DNI numbers, and like they're like, oh look, we have a women's team, but I don't feel like that. It's not. Yeah, for us, it's just more so, hey, how can we support? I think this is necessary, and I think I encourage like all other programs to create something like this. I want to share a story of like GCU and like, oh, Jay doesn't get mad, but he's the director there. He's talking about how he created like a women's program there as well, and for them, they have to pay to use their space. But on the Women's Day, they can all come in, use the space for free. Right. Only women. But the first time they did it, he was in there just to make sure like no stupid boys are in there saying like dumb stuff. And then some of the women that came in, they're like, "Who's this guy?" Like they're saying that to Jay. They're like, and so he was like, "Do you want me to leave?" And then she was just like, "Yeah." And like they just told the director to leave. And so he went to his like like his Kevin, who's a woman, and she was like, well, you know what I mean, like Tracy, yeah. And they're like, "Oh, should I leave?" It's like, "Oh yeah, I think you should leave." So he just left, and like, that's awesome. As again, because his intention was good, right? He just wanted to make sure guys aren't doing like anything stupid. They aren't making, or sorry, no guys come in. No one does anything stupid. It's like, hey, I want to go play. Yeah, and stuff like that. But they're like, yeah, you should leave. Yeah, they're like, why are you here? Exactly. And so that's why he was like, okay, I'll leave. And like, I love what they're doing and how they're trying to bring in people to speak during their women's night. And ideally, I would love to do that here, except we live like 5,000 miles away.
Yeah, let's just fly our whole team out.
That would be so awesome. But yeah, I really encourage, because I think until you know how hard it is for them, and even then I don't fully know, but I can only imagine. We can't. So I'm trying to think. We should just support them because of how difficult it is.
Yeah,
right?
And
like,
it's okay to ask.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he was like, "Should I be here?"
Yeah.
And just being like honest with yourself and not being afraid to ask questions.
I just love it how like a regular student was like, "Yeah, you should leave," but they didn't know. Like imagine like someone being to Sky like, "Yo, get out." But like I know you would, but it's just like, oh, it's a funny like thing to imagine in my head. Like, oh wow, like.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's also important to understand is that to say to get out is not to be offensive.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's what some men actually see that as. So whenever you see all women spaces, like I said before, this very issue has a long history in collegiate.
Yep.
It's not 1, 2, 3, 4 years old. Like I said, some of the founding people that I've talked with have talked about this issue going back really more than a decade.
Yeah.
Close to 2 decades. It's this idea that whenever you want to create an all women's or marginalized space, it is not meant to be offensive to men.
Yep.
Right. Which I think a lot of men do take it as.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I think is important, is that, again, going back to the Smash Sisters, when they created their Smash group, right, it's an all women's group, no men involved.
Yep.
And the few men that were involved for their tournaments, were really like the boyfriends of the girls, right? So often when you see a tournament, when you see a girl there, people will see that, oh, why are you here? Are you a girlfriend of the player?
Yeah.
And so what you see with all these women's tournaments or all women's tournaments, this idea is that they just, going back to the idea, they just want to have a space in which they can feel agency over.
Yeah.
Okay. Even in my class, we talked about this. It was kind of a hot topic. And the question I threw out there for my class was, what do you think of all women's tournaments? Right. And
nothing wrong with it.
Right. And it was an interesting conversation because a lot of the guys in my class, thought about it and thought, why not have it co-ed? Right.
I wonder why.
Yeah. And I think, again, nothing wrong with that thinking, but what they're coming from for their perspective is to say, why do we have any divisions at all? But I think from a women's perspective or for a marginalized perspective, co-ed, for a lot of women, co-ed spaces are actually the norm. Women actually grow up playing games with their brothers, with their fathers.
Yeah.
An all women's space is actually a very unique experience.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think a good example of that happened in my program recently is our program is set right now to only marginalized genders. So we ran into this issue where we created this Minecraft server because there's a lot of people wanting to play on something, and it's, it's like the best stress relieving college student kind of game.
Right.
So I set up this server, and then suddenly there's all these complaining like guys about, oh, I want to join the server, or and I'm like, can you let us have one thing?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Make a server. Make a Minecraft server. We don't have one in UHE. And I understand they want to do something like that. They want to be involved.
Right.
But the fact that they can't go, what's different about this one?
Right.
Oh, it's for only marginalized genders. And that makes it a little more special.
Well, it just makes it safe, too.
It makes it safe. It's very moderated. It's just kind of for a small collective. It's not made for a whole bunch of people either. So, and it's also coming out of my own pocket. Like, I'm paying for the server personally because that's what I want for my community.
Right.
So the fact that so many of them, and they mean well, and a lot of them
I think they just want to play, but they just
they
don't
literally
understand,
just
right?
want to play, but they just don't take a second to think, like, why is this thing being created and why can't I join it actually? Or what's the real reason behind that?
Right.
And then you get into that question of, like, all women's tournaments and all women teams and stuff like that. And why does it really matter?
And I think, with the Smash Sisters, like I said, it was just a very interesting dynamic that happened in 2015 where they were successful in creating their space, drew in a lot of women. I think one of the things I really appreciate about the Smash Sisters event is that they intentionally took lots and lots of photos of women in public spaces playing video games, which is very unusual.
Yeah.
So if you ever go online, just type in Smash Sisters, go to images, you will see these very sort of like shocking photos of just women faces. And that itself is a powerful statement, very powerful visual statement of what they were able to accomplish. But then again, their goal was not to say that they just want to stay as all women environments. Their goal was to say, we want to create this environment in which we feel that we've created enough confidence, support, and love, in which we then say, yeah, let's transition to something else.
Yeah.
Right. And I just really thought that was, like I said, it was an early successful experiment around Smash that I think reverberated around many different all women's communities. That I think a lot of collegiate folks and a lot of collegiate women also saw Lily Chen's example and were just very inspired by that.
Yeah, exactly. There was something I was just thinking, and then it completely left.
No,
my
you're
mind.
chilling. I mean, like, I want to add to this too, because
Yeah.
how you said they want to bring it to something else. You think, like, and this could be a topic for your class too, because for GCU they brought up the idea of, like, hey, that is all women's days, but ideally they want to, like, bring everyone together, right, so that they feel safe, guys aren't being stupid. Because I think if you just do women's only, or if, like, you have a women's only corner or marginalized corner, then you're just segregating them. Then you're like, okay, you're in this tiny little corner.
It's this weird line between, like, segregation and then, like, actual, like,
you want to bring people
supporting.
together, right? But right now I agree, it's like you need that safe space for,
and I'm sorry, I just remembered, but it ties to what you're saying, is that I brought this up a lot recently, but I don't want the Women of UHE program to exist in the future.
Yeah.
And that sounds really weird because I'm like, oh, I don't want to support women, but
No, I know
want
what you mean.
us to get to a point where this isn't necessary, but it is necessary right now. And in the beginning, I didn't really know exactly how it was going to help people. And now I have a more like grounded understanding because I have gotten a lot of messages of people like either thanking me for creating a safer place for them to play or a easier way to make friends or to be involved with the program. And honestly, a lot of the people in our program aren't even in our UHEsports server or in our general UHE program. They're only in the Women of UHE program because they don't want to be in the general UHE program. They want to be in this space and they're either just don't feel comfortable in it or just don't want to or feel shy, whatever. Every reason is valid, but it just made it so real to me that it was worth it. But I really want to get to a place where we don't need that.
Do you think also going through like problems also makes you realize like, oh yeah, this is definitely, you know, it sucks, right? That's like, okay, I'm noticing these issues. Or
I created the program out of this needs to happen because I noticed how like even in our community, like in VCs and stuff like that, if a woman joins or if someone was like, it's mostly male dominated conversation and they are so loud and they'll talk over everything and it's very intimidating. And I kind of view myself as someone that really will just put myself in uncomfortable situations. I'll do my best to not be intimidated by stuff and still speak out, still be involved in the program. And that's what really helped me get to this point because I just talked over them and fit the vibe, but got further. But seeing like, even when I joined the VC and then noticing that other women would join with me or stuff like that, other marginalized genders would feel more comfortable because I was there. And then I was like, oh, this sucks. Like, I want you to join all the time or I want you to feel comfortable in this space.
I mean, I want to share like, cause with Valorant, like,
oh my gosh.
No, I have like, usually I'll play with all 5 friends. So if we all know each other, we use comms. But like one of my lady friends, and like she won't talk on comms.
No.
If there's like strangers, because it's like you just don't know the backlash, and that sucks. Like no one should have to go through that.
No, and what sucked is it's still happening. Yes. Like I don't really play Valorant anymore, but I used to play a lot. And and I had this similar kind of experience where I wouldn't use a mic or I wouldn't talk unless I was doing well, because then I felt validated. And then I got to a point where I really didn't care.
Yeah.
But when we did the presentation the other day and one of the high schoolers came up to me and she was telling me, she was just like, how can I like improve the environment in Valorant, or how can I like get it to be more like, I don't know, just she wanted advice to how to make it more positive and to stop toxicity as much. And we just started complaining to each other because she was bringing up how she didn't want to talk in comms and stuff like that.
That's a really good point, just because, you know, it reminds me of why I got into this research in the first place. So Dr. Kashana Gray, so you got to meet her in Kentucky. So she was an early mentor of mine, along, of course, with Dr. Jennifer Winter in my PhD program. But Dr. Kashana Gray came out of ASU, I believe. And so she did a guest speaking stint in my master's course. And she was finishing up her PhD, I think, at the time. And her research was the research that got me motivated to go into doing esports research. And her research, like I said, was completely fascinating because she talked about her experiences as a Black woman playing Call of Duty, I believe. And she played Call of Duty around the time that Xbox Live got voice comms.
Oh, God.
The early 2010s.
And so she talks about pre-voice comms and post-voice comms. And it was a research paper that she discussed about this. And the research was so interesting that it inspired me for my PhD to go into esports research. So like I said, you know, Dr. Kashana Gray is a very close friend of mine. You know, she came down and visited the family here in Hawaii. 2016, she spoke at our comm department. Kevin got to meet her. She is just a fantastic advocate for these type of discussions. But like I said, the comm thing was a very interesting turn, because once she started to use comms for Xbox Live, not only did she get into running into sexism, vitriol, misogyny. Yeah, we have her photo right here. Yeah, not only did she run into that, she ran into that because not only did she find out that people knew she was a woman, but also that they found out she was a Black woman and also a Black Southern woman, maybe with an accent. And the amount of hate and racism and sexism. Imagine. So that's another important topic to bring up here is that women of UHE, one of the goals I hope that this inspires is that this type of inclusiveness should be intersectional as well.
Yeah.
And what I mean by intersectional is that it is both gender, race, economic status, religion, and disability. And that is something that I'm working on with some other students in our program, is to say that women of UHE could be the catalyst for other types of students to seek out their communities for accessibility. But yeah, going back to the VoiceCom, it was such a pivotal moment.
Yeah. That's so fascinating. Yeah. I'd love to read it.
Yeah, like I said, that the research in this is very interesting, and that's what I hope to inspire in other students, is to say that there's so much different types of game studies research. But for me, as a esports scholar, what inspired me was actually a Black woman's experience with voice comms.
Right.
I want to talk about, like, because my final paper is with Jennifer Winter too, for me to graduate. I did on toxicity in video games as well. I based it off my own experiences. I played League, and that community has a whole can of worms. It was called like the online disinhibition effect, where it's like, if you don't see the other person, like you're more likely, like you're a pace behind the screen. You have that,
being able to hide behind.
You have that anonymity. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you're anonymous, and so you're able to use that to your advantage, and people end up being a lot meaner than they would if. I know. I can't speak. But like with our Smash group, like they're a lot of friendly, and there are toxic Smash people, but like because they're in person, they're not gonna like say awful things to that other person, right? Because there's a human element.
Way low.
There's a human element. I mean, obviously, there's still gonna be people who.
Yeah, but I swear there's less racism and like blatant, just disgusting behavior.
Yeah.
And like, unfortunately, it probably does happen behind closed doors, and hopefully, we get to that point where it's not like that. But it's nice to know, like, if there's a human involved, where I'm not involved. If you can talk to another human face to face, you're able to speak more freely, not as evil, because you realize, oh, this person has feelings, right? It's not like, okay, like you're talking to a screen. So, it was like really interesting to just learn about all of that. But yeah, like I completely agree with what Sky said. Like, hopefully this is the catalyst. So that
but it's like
I mean, you need to start.
It's something that's been happening for millions of years,
which is awful.
Like, and the progression of even like the world being a little more equal or having more equality in general has been so slow and has almost been going backwards at points, and it's kind of frustrating, but it's something like, well, it's a start. I remember a student in your class when I gave a presentation, she really was just like, why does this, like, it's not doing anything, basically. Because I talked about my program, like my Women of UHE program, and she kind of was just like, isn't this like not gonna do that much though? Like that kind of mentality, which is true. In the grand scheme of things, it's not doing a lot.
Because like, I can relate this. I think a lot of people think that like, why am I? It's the same with recycling. People are like, why should I even bother? The world is going up 3 degrees. Burning. Yeah. Why do I need to even make an attempt if in the next 50 years, while I'm alive, I'm not going to experience this? But you got to push.
Up. Yeah. It does add up. And I think, like I said, just having, Ali and Madeline, even if Women of UHE was not here, just having Madeline and Alan in positions of influence and power has changed the scope of our program, has changed the tenure of our program. A lot more women are here because you guys are here.
Yeah.
Straight up. Like, we don't even have to.
That's actually true.
Just without, not even just talking about WouHE, like just having 2 women in positions of which they are visible, they make decisions. The fact that, like we have, Ali that is unapologetically a gamer. Like she just, when she plays, she is open, she's
In
loud,
the moment.
she's visible. Like it's moved the needle, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I laughed when I was like, sometimes a little toxic.
Yeah. But like I said,
like
you know,
gamer.
yeah,
gamer.
I mean, yeah, like I said, you know, going back to Smash Sisters, one of the things that they promoted was not necessarily trash talking, but actually being
Riled up.
being free to feel vulgar.
Yeah.
And not feeling apologetic about it.
Yeah. Not
Right?
not needing to be timid or quiet
Yeah.
or respectful
Yeah,
or
exactly.
whatever we're taught, like as societal norms as women.
Right. So those type of taboos that are broken in front of the general population, I think, is something that I see as progress.
Yeah. I really also want to shout out, especially Alohi, who was in the program even way before I joined. And when I did join, because the first thing I did was Valorant content, and seeing her in her position, she's a freaking storm. Yeah. She is so good at everything she does. She's just amazing and
she's
works really hard.
It works really well.
And just super like passionate, and is like, she's called her name's Alohi, but she's like the embodiment of aloha in Hawaii. And seeing her in a position of leadership and watching her, because she led our content team, and seeing what she did and just being able to see her in that position really helped me feel better about joining it. Especially Kelsey as well.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
Because I wasn't the first woman in like leadership.
Right.
And I am technically in like a leadership position, but in leading something and being a big part of the program, there were already women in the program or marginalized genders that were doing a lot.
But not just with UHEsports. It goes back to the very clubs at UH.
No, exactly.
The very first League of Legends clubs that Riot came here in 2014 was operated by a woman.
Right.
I actually tried to ping her. I don't know if I pinged the right person or not, but I wanted to invite her back. Because just to say, like, you know, the work that has been done. I think we all stand on the shoulders of our
the old school
of our
but I have to credit
alumni.
them because like if I'm motivating other people, that's awesome. But there is also people that motivated me. And if
you're
they
gonna
weren't
motivate,
there, I don't know if things really would have been the same. Because you're right, seeing someone in leadership that you can identify with that creates more of a comfortable environment, is you're more likely to join it because suddenly you have a personal connection or a feeling of like, oh, I see someone doing something and I want to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Because they also have something in common with me, even if it's so surface level of the same color of your skin or, you know, the same gender or the same identity or stuff like that. It's so important, and I'm glad that we can start to do more. And it's great because it's like, I don't think Kelsey really would have been involved with our general UHE program anymore. But the fact that she's still involved with our Women of UHE makes me so happy because she's also an incredible person and has done so much. She helped me screen print our merch and like is so involved still.
And I want to cycle back too. Like, I know you mentioned Kelsey and Alohi and what Sky mentioned about like, they were already so good at what they do. Like, we didn't just pick them out of tokenism, right? Like, they genuinely were so
like,
good.
They're good at their jobs.
Yeah. I'll also say this. I do believe everyone has that potential. And, like, ideally, I want to work with these students to make sure that they can sprout and be as the best version of themselves. So I'm glad that they were able to do that, but also
look into the future.
Yep.
Right? I mean, I see the future of Women of UHEsports. And I'm very optimistic about it, that what you guys have created, I can already see the spillover effect.
I'm so pumped.
Yeah.
Like, even because I talked to a few high schoolers the other day and I'm getting them involved with our program because I don't want it to just be, this is a collegiate space only. I want it to be open to high schoolers and to alumni, and in a way that's super beneficial, like educationally as well. Something that I want to do in the future is just have more educational programs for everyone, not just for Women of UHE, but provided by Women of UHE, especially about us on this island. Like, I was talking to a few groups. One of them I'm wearing a shirt from, but it's just Native Hawaiians and supporting their community because they face a lot of really difficult issues. And this month is like Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and that's something that's really kind of like put me in the place of there's all these different communities that are supporting the same thing and we can work together. And getting to know other nonprofits as well has made me really go, oh, this thing can be something bigger and help more people.
Yeah, I do want to jump off the diving board, but like I liked when you brought it up with the high school kids.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, you guys are the future.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't bring it up with them.
I want this program when I was a high schooler.
And it's like, no, but not only that, but like telling them like, hey, this is not okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a very serious topic, and I don't think they're used to like, oh, getting hit with the reality check, like, hey, don't be doing this. Like,
yeah.
It made me appreciate it's like, oh yeah, we have the right person leading this because they're going to tell the kids straight up, like, hey, this is not okay. We need to make sure that you guys as a future can perpetuate a good and healthy environment, right? And for the people who have to go through the hurdles that they shouldn't have to. And I was like, that's dope.
As someone that's also like been through high school in the American system and has just seen the path from high school to college, I have such a motivation to help high school students in finding what they want to do, in finding communities and what like they're interested in, because I think there's a really big disconnect there where they just kind of get shoved into college and no one, and then even in college they don't really have support and everyone's kind of like trying to figure themselves out. But if we have more support for them when they're growing up, especially during high school, because that's so pivotal for a lot of like young people. And also just kind of like a bad time sometimes. Like I've had a lot of conversations recently with people about their high school experiences and especially my own, and it's not really that positive. And I think if we can provide like genuine communities for them and make their paths easier, and I think that's why I really wanted to bring high school students into our program. I think capping it, I'm dealing with the issue of like age right now, because if you're under 18 it's kind of harder to you have to moderate the spaces a little more, so I have to cap it like only high school students and up. But I really was like passionate about adding them in because I think it's important for them to not feel alone, especially because like a lot of people interested in gaming and stuff like that sometimes are kind of more disconnected or aren't really interested in what other people are interested in, or they feel more lonely or stuff like that. And
like when I first started UHE, like I think the big thing, at least like this is one of the pitch things that I mentioned at the time, was like I want to give people that home, right? Not everyone's gonna join a fraternity or a sorority or join athletics clubs or do intramurals. It's like, what if you're just a gamer and there's no club that exists for you, and you're here, you flew out? Like, I just imagine if I went to like a mainland school and there's no gaming club, I would be depressed. Like, I think I would just be like, I have no community I could connect to. So like creating this and seeing students like just genuinely enjoy like having this space, hang out with people that are like-minded,
crediting like the program for the reason they have friends and the reason that they are motivated to do things or they're passionate about something is, even if they don't go into working in gaming or esports, the fact that they can have this space is so awesome.
Like the fact that
you guys are able to do that.
A 2-hour commute by bus. By the way, like that like when he's just like, I love it, I'm like, like when you like something you're gonna do like, that. Damn, do I love 2-hour commute? It's like, okay, I would have to even think that through, but the fact that they love it that much, like that's awesome that we were able to do that, and it's a collective effort. And like you don't really hear those stories all the time because they're just there, they're just playing, but when you hear that like tiny little thing, it's like, wow, that's sick.
Because I think especially like the three of us were high enough up that we get stuck in the kind of business side of things, the management side, where we're just constantly doing stuff and we're constantly working, and we don't always get to see, like, I'm literally coordinating with people and I still sometimes feel disconnected from what they're doing, from the teams, from how things are going, and being able to have those moments where you're like, oh, this is what's going on. And that's why I've always appreciated that you talk to students all the time, and especially those in our program, because it's so important for you to be able to know what they're doing and like get to know people better, because it's just like those are the guys that make up our program.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to see kind of what's happening there and stay in touch with them and not get into disconnected like corporate world.
Yeah, and I know what you mean.
The mess.
Like, because I work in this room. It's like the students are like, "Oh, what do you do?" Like when they say that,
they always ask me that.
They're like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Okay, like I work with I work with the students, right?" And they're like, "Oh, really?" And I was like, "Yes."
Yeah.
And so like that's how I got to meet Christian and talking to him about it. And he's like, "Oh shoot, I want to come back and like I want to talk to you more and like pick your brain, right?"
Yeah.
And like,
no, even our like team leads.
yeah,
I'm like I'm here for you guys
Yeah.
to help you. Like my main job is to talk to you. And it took some of them so long to feel comfortable just like coming in and saying hi to me or asking to call, and then now they bother me all the time, which I'm very glad, because before I was like, God, I'm right here, like use me, this is why we're here, like for you.
Yeah, like hopefully we can get to that point where like it's just students continue to just truly enjoy without having to worry about like problems that I think shouldn't happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because right now, it sucks, like you said, that we have to have WouHE.
Yeah.
But I like the goal, and it's a good intention. It's good intention, right?
It keeps me focused.
Well, I would say like, these type of organizations ideally should exist no matter what. Just because, there's a sense that we want colorblindness in the world.
Yeah.
But I feel that that there is good intentions behind that, but one thing that I think would be as important is both colorblindness, but also acknowledgement of differences.
Yeah.
Right, and acknowledgement of differences is a way that has to happen first before there's colorblindness in the space. Just because colorblindness can also be a way of saying, I don't want to deal with your past. I just want to look towards the future, which is okay. There's some sense of understanding with that, but for a lot of folks that are marginalized, you can't look to the future without compensating or acknowledging the past.
Do you think, this is so philosophical now, do you think we can ever get to that? Because like, again, I totally understand what you're saying about the whole idea of like, you just don't want to like think about like their problems and you want to get to the point, but like, I think in the dream world, right, where there's like no like infighting, there's no racism, no sexism, no homophobia. It's like that would, for me, that is like the dream goal, right? Like, but I totally get what you're saying. It's like you don't want to just turn a blind eye and say like, well, I don't want to deal with this. Like that's the goal.
Well, because not like that won't do anything. Yeah, it's still gonna be there, and but there is a sense of like moving on, of not getting stuck in the past, but acknowledging it and acknowledging people's struggles and their differences, but using that as a form of like, okay, let's take that and do something better. Let's make things right. Let's change things. And I think that intention is really important in the space. And maybe we'll never get to like a great point where everything's perfect, and I don't think we ever will, because humans are so flawed. There is nothing, like we're constantly repeating the same mistakes as shown by history.
Exactly.
We're always going in this cycle, but if we can
always
have those intentions and influence other people, motivate and inspire, I think that's enough. Okay.
Sorry, that was real. I know we started off really deep.
No, I know.
Set the tone.
I was like, I don't really know how this is gonna go, because it's hard to like assess. You're like experienced podcasters.
Yeah, I was like,
I've done this like 3 times now. It's hard.
Yeah, it is hard.
No, but it's necessary. These are great conversations, and like I said, I really appreciate having having you and having Ali and having all the rest of the women in WouHE. Really, like I said, it's moved the needle in the program. No longer are we the UHE of years ago. We're a very different program. And I just, like I said, Kevin and I are just, very supportive of exactly what you've been doing.
Yeah. No, and that's why I felt so comfortable with bringing you guys on here, because there's you guys have been the biggest supporters of what I've been doing, and have always had my back and have always been there for conversations and for mentorship, but also as friends. So Thank you.
Thank you.
For the next podcast,
Yeah.
can we do more fun and shit? Like, what's your favorite anime? What's your dude? All my
No, that
podcasts-
happened. The last
Yeah,
podcast,
I know.
we had like this, like, we had so much fun, and then at the very end, we started talking about like domestic violence awareness
seriously.
month, and it brought up like all these like really hard topics, and we were
Yeah.
like, "Whoa, that
No, it's
came
okay.
out of
No,
nowhere."
it's okay. Nothing to apologize for.
I
Absolutely
miss.
not.
I want one podcast where it's like, Kevin, how's your day? What food do you really like and why? I have interesting.
What's your favorite color?
I have interesting takes too. Okay,
We know all that already.
Yeah, no, not Korean fried chicken. But anyways,
Uh,
I have interesting takes too. Okay, is that it?
okay, that's it.
Cool.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Make
Sorry,
sure-
I know I didn't even get to do this.
Don't-
Yeah, we didn't. We actually.
No,
Did we,
I think we did hit.
did we miss some?
I swear we hit a lot of them.
Okay, good, good.
Yeah, I was just like,
That's why I said, because I hate having like, oh, this fully planned out. We have to hit
Yeah, no,
every
I think
single
you should just have
question.
a list of
You
some.
did so much of the
and then,
work for me. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, no, it's just because we've done this
I
enough
know,
times.
you have your whole speech of like, "Hi, I'm Kevin, and I'm
Yeah,
here for blah blah blah."
I know, right?
I'm trying to work on like the ums and uhs and like all that. Like,
That's her job now.
Gotcha.
She has to edit it.
Yeah.